All right, so the purpose of this video is to continue our discussion on place value and actually talk a little bit about how to show different place values by using the expanded form. And then we're also going to use the expanded form with decimals and fractions. So I've got a chart here that I hope will be helpful. So you'll notice here on our chart, we've got 1,000, 100, 10, 1. We have 1/10, 1/100th, and 1/1000th. So we're going to use that to help us make sure that we do the expanded form with decimals and fractions correctly. So let's go ahead and rewrite this number up here underneath our chart. Now I have 2,409. So I'm going to put the 2,000 below the 2,000, 400, and we have no tens and we have 9 ones. So we have 2,409 each underneath their place value. So first off, let's just do expanded form. So we're going to take this number. It has a value of 2,000. So I want to write 2,000 plus 4 has a value of 400. So I'm going to add 400. Now I do not have any tens, so I'm going to leave that blank. I'm going to skip that and go over to my ones place, and I have 9 ones. So that is how you write expanded form. All right, so now let's go ahead and write it using what we call powers of 10. So let me give you an example of that. So we would be writing 2, and since it's in the thousands place, we would say 2 times 1,000. So we're actually taking our 2,000, we're showing that it represents 2,000 by saying 2 times 1,000. Then we're going to then change our 400 into 4 100. So we'd say 4 times 100. Now, since I'm using both multiplication and division for this problem, I'm putting my multiplication in parentheses. That way it shows that 2 times 1,000 should be solved first. Then you would solve 4 times 100, and then we have 9 ones. So we would say plus 9 times 1. So what I've done here is I've taken 2 times 1,000, 4 times 100, 9 times 1, and that is how you show the powers of 10 method. Now, adding on to that, if we were to actually add decimals, so let's go ahead and add some decimals here. I'm going to add 104 thousandths. So on that note, we would go ahead and bring that up here in our model. So I'm going to put my decimal there. I'm going to put my 1/10 there. I'm going to show that I have 0 hundredths and that I have 4 thousandths. So how might these two models change if we had decimals? So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So right here, we could go ahead and add on to this, and we could say, okay, plus 1/10, making sure we put our decimal in the correct spot, plus 0 hundredths, so I don't need to do anything for that, plus 4 1,000ths. So I would put 0, 0, 4, showing that it is the third decimal over. Now the other thing that you can do is show that you have 0 whole numbers, okay, and that's a really common thing. So this is how you would write it if you had decimals. You would just show the exact place value of each digit. So now let's take a look at what would that look like down here if we were to write that with decimals, okay? So we would actually, using decimals, we would say, okay, plus 1/10 times 1/10. So in this case, we're going to put 1 times 1/10. We don't need our decimal there because we're multiplying it by the place value. And then the last one we would say is 4 thousandths. So notice we take 4 times 1 1,000th. And that would be a plus in between. So that gives you a model of how you would write that showing the value using fractions. Now we can do the same thing with decimals. So let's go ahead and take a look. So again, we take each one of these place values. We take 2 times 1,000, 4 times 100. We have no 10, so we'd leave that blank. 9 times 1, 1 times 1/10, or 1 times 1/10. depending on if it's a fraction or decimal. We have no hundredths, so we leave that blank. We take 4 times 1,000ths using the decimal model. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we would take 2 times 1,000 plus 4 times 100 plus 9 times 1. And for our decimals, we would say 1, because our digit is 1, times 0.1. So we're going to use the decimal for this one. And then for the next one, or the last one, we have no hundredths, so we would use thousands. We'd say 4. Since we have 4, we'd say times 0.001, or we'd say times 1,000. So that shows you how you can take a number, write it in expanded form, showing the powers of 10 using the fractions, or using the decimals showing the powers of 10 as well.